Here's a question for you. How much could you lose if the data in your phone was stolen? OK, now ask yourself, what are you doing to protect your data? If you're like most young people, the answer is probably nothing. Forget those naughty pictures on your phone. Hackers could stop your car on the highway if they wanted. As a culture, we kind of know there are risks to putting our schedules, contacts and bank accounts online, but rarely do anything to protect ourselves, even as rates of identity theft rise and international cyber war becomes our new reality. So ask yourself again, what are you doing to protect yourself? And what should we as a society do? Right now, we're going to find out, and as always, we'll break down the issues in facts, figures, dollars and cents. I'm joined by a panel of brilliant experts trying to answer the question, what is the business of cybersecurity? You've heard that a strong password will make you less vulnerable, but does it? Take a look at this. 2 seconds, that's the time it takes to brute force crack the password S9DJ F3S. And it's important to note here that 61% of Americans, so we're talking about the majority here, use the same password for multiple sites. All right, guys, I'm going to ask everyone here, who here has changed their password in the last 6 months? Raise your hand. OK, pretty good, pretty good. But wait, how many of you guys use the same password for multiple sites? Not so great. You as well.
What?
OK, wait.
It's just really inconvenient. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, I know what best practice is.
Yeah.
I advise people to do it, and I mostly follow it. But security is largely about trade-offs, right? And it's a trade-off between security and convenience. And I'm not going to lie and say that I've never chosen convenience.
Austin, can we just back up for a second and explain what is a brute force crack?
Basically, it's running a program that will run all the digits of your password through, like a dictionary, until it comes to the actual solution.
So is this a simple password or a complex password, this one here?
It's fairly simple.
Really? So can you give me an example of a complex password? Is that when they ask you to use, like, an asterisk and an uppercase and lowercase?
Sure.
Prevailing wisdom these days is that you should actually start thinking in terms of passphrases rather than passwords.
OK.
And so, for instance, the passphrase, like horse, cup, shoe, shining, light, like, for instance, a bunch of seriously unrelated words that comprise, maybe like 4 or 5 of them. There's actually a password program called Diceware that will actually help you choose these things. And so, I mean, you can provide yourself with the ability to memorize a passphrase relatively easily, and it's far more difficult than 7 alphanumeric characters.
Jim, what about security questions? Can they help as well? Because I've heard it's a good idea to say the security question is like, what was your mother's maiden name, to set the answer to that to be the answer to a completely different question, like your date of birth.
For sure. You know, especially your mother's maiden name. You can go on a genealogy site and find those out pretty quick on people. But there's another thing you can do that allow you to go to any site, have it always be unique and still be kind of easy to remember. Come up with kind of your set password, have it be 8 characters, crazy, uppercase, lowercase, whatever it is. And then look at the domain name from where you're at and come up with your algorithm of what you're going to use. So let's say it's Amazon. I'm going to use the first letter and the last letter of that domain name. And from that point on, every site I go to, I'll always add the first and last letter of the domain name at the end of my password. So now every site I go to, my password will always be unique. And yet for me, it'll be easy for me to remember because all I have to do is look at the domain name and I know whatever it is right off of that.
I just want to say that password recovery questions are the devil. So you go to a website and you type in your password, and then you realize that you don't remember it, and then you get a drop-down which says, what city were you born in? Right now, you can find out what city I was born in by Googling my name. The answer to the question, which city were you born in, that is now your password. Like, would you set your password to Austin? If you wouldn't set your password to Austin, then you shouldn't use it for a password recovery question.
Let's look at this from a global perspective. How safe is the world? On average, in 2015, 100,000 cyber attacks hit the US Department of Defense every single day. Austin, do you think the next terrorist attack is going to be a cyber attack?
I think it will be one. I don't know about the next. But, one of the things that the government does is kind of an Armageddon scenario, right? Kind of war game out how they would respond to a targeted attack that, almost like 3-pronged, taking out critical infrastructure, financial, maybe NASDAQ or stock exchange, taking down public transportation, knocking out the MTA, at the same time taking out maybe the Con electric grid. You think about all the implications aside from mass panic. Think about all the people who are trapped on subways in the tunnel.
Right.
Think about the power goes down, how many people are affected, how many lives are affected, a complete and utter nightmare. These scenarios are looked at because they're real
possibilities. I mean, we've talked about government defending itself, but I know a concern for a lot of people is about defending ourselves from surveillance from government.
I think over the last sort of 3-4 years, we've learnt the websites you browse on the internet, the emails you send, the documents you send back and forth, and messages you post on message boards. The majority of this information that passes over the internet is, sort of collected by government intelligence. I mean, not specifically because of you, right? But they've just decided that they need the haystack if they want to sift it.
People don't even realize, like, the amount of information that can be gathered just from your home. You have smart devices that you're putting in, your televisions now, your Amazon Echo, these things that you put in your house that can actually listen to what you're saying, do collect data. Yes, your Fitbits, and they've actually been subpoenaed.
You need legal process to get that type of information. The government just can't come knocking on your door and come get your Fitbit and say, oh, we want to download it. There has to be probable cause to believe that a crime is being committed or has been committed, and it's the fruit of that crime. The amount of resources that it takes to tap a phone and monitor that phone legally is a lot. That's the highest level of intrusiveness that the government can do. You have to exhaust all other investigative possibilities to get to that wiretap.
I think now, like, what if someone went through my house? What if someone went through my bedroom? What do they get, right? They can see what I'm reading, probably the clothes I wear. They might gain some information as to my sexual proclivities. But what if someone went through my phone, right? That is actually a far more invasive level of information than you could actually find going through my bedroom now.
But I have no interest in looking at your phone if I don't think you're doing anything criminal.
Right, but so I mean, like, does that mean that you should gather data about my online activities just to reassure yourself? I mean, there's a friction there between transparency required to have public trust in your actions and then, obviously keeping espionage secret.
Right, and I think that's the crux of the issue. We can't release everything that you're doing unless it's not going to work, right? You can't surveil somebody for 6 weeks if you're telling them that you're surveilling them.
Let's talk about another vulnerability. Most people think about your personal computer or phone when talking about cybersecurity, but what about your car? Take a look at this. More than $36 billion. That's the projected revenue from wireless devices in cars by 2018. However, nearly 1.5 million vehicles were recalled by Chrysler in 2015 for vulnerability to hacking. And 100 million Volkswagen cars are vulnerable to hacking too. Jim, the public was really, really excited about all of these devices, right? Were we duped?
No, I mean, the devices are cool. I mean, you can do a lot of great things, and now you can turn your car on from an app. I mean, that's pretty cool. But no, where the risk comes in is that you have all these manufacturers that have, wanted to, hey, we want to go Wi-Fi. We want to have this stuff in our cars. And I think that they kind of put the cart before the horse and didn't really think about the security aspects, at least at a real level, until after the fact. Chrysler, to me, was the most frightening because you could remotely control the car. And so if you're talking about being in your home on a computer and being able to turn somebody's car off or, screw with them in some way while on the road, that's pretty frightening.
So was that a bad idea that Chrysler even came up with?
They fixed that. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, but their fix is a frightening fix, even because what they said is, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send you a USB in the mail, and you need to, that's the fix. And you have to put it in your car to patch your car. How many people do you think did that? I mean, I guarantee if my parents got a USB in the mail, they'd look at it and, think of some foreign object and throw it away. I mean, they just wouldn't know what to do with that at all.
Okay, we have time for another question. Who else has one? Hello.
I'm just wondering if you guys think that privacy is a thing of the past now.
I think privacy was a thing of the past a while ago. I think maybe people are starting to realize it now, but
when you say a while ago, when?
Well, I mean, the minute you got a cell phone, you've given up a certain level of privacy. I mean, right off the mark, people know and can track exactly where you are pretty much all the time, whether you want to or not. Every time you install an app, you answer like, yes, I allow it to have all this access. Nobody ever actually reads what the access is they're giving up, but they give up all this access so that whoever the manufacturers of that app can now monitor certain things you're doing.
Does that mean that privacy has become a thing of the past? And your answer is yes.
Well, I guess it also depends on what you're calling privacy. I mean, is it Big Brother looking down and monitoring everything you do? I don't think we're there. Is it that people or organizations are able to track certain things you do and then they can take that data and use that for whatever purposes they want? Absolutely.
Unfortunately, that does it for this edition of The Business of Life. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining us here today, Austin, Morgan and Jim, and all of you for watching at home. We'll see you next time on The Business of Life. Bye-bye.
Business of Life is made possible by Better Money Habits. It's a free resource that helps you build practical knowledge and take control of your finances. Powered by Bank of America. See more at bettermoneyhabits.com.